Check out Paddy's Rewards Club. Place 5 bets of £10 or more across any sport in a week and get a £10 free bet the next week. Paddy Power, you beauty! Max £10 bonus per person per week. Excludes shop bets. Selected odds. Conditions and exclusions apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
Hi there, a very happy new year. It's the Racing Post Football Postcast. I'm Bruce Millington, and in the company of my Racing Post colleagues Mark Langdon and Dan Childs, as well as from Paddy Power, Ian Griffin, we are going to talk all things FA Cup. Yep, the tournament starts this weekend. There's absolutely loads and loads of live games. We're going to look at where the value lies with them, with the non-televised games, and the lads will also have a crack at trying to name the winner. We've also got a live Premier League game on Thursday. We'll have a quick look at that. But we will start off with the 6 questions. You know how it works. The lads get 2 each, and then they get to answer the one they wish they'd been asked. So, lads, Happy New Year to you. Hope that 2018 is good for you punting-wise. We'll start with you, Mark. What was your highlight of the festive footy season?
I think it was probably last night's
Wasn't
game,
it good?
really, yeah.
Wasn't it good?
The Emirates. I mean, it's sort of the start of the Christmas period with Liverpool against Arsenal, and then the end of it. Well, I mean, we've got Tottenham, West Ham, but you know, sort of that Arsenal-Chelsea game. They were both outstanding matches. I think you know, we've seen the best and worst of Arsenal really in both of those contests. I mean, you know, that they probably could have conceded more in both games.
Morata
but then
was terrible.
He was,
wasn't
yeah. He missed you know, 2 really good chances. I thought the middle of those was a little bit more difficult when he was sort of running through and Chambers just pushed him a bit wider. But yeah, that was probably the highlight. I thought it was an outstanding game. Really.
Did you win money?
I've started this season in fantastic tipping form. Which is just as well, because the Saturday was that New Year's Eve weekend was an absolute disaster. Started on the Friday, I backed Yeovil plus a quarter goal against Morecambe. They were 2-0 up after 15 minutes, 3-2 up with about 5 to go and still lost. A wipeout on Saturday, and then on Sunday I backed Arsenal at West Brom, which was the penalty decision right at the end there, because you know West Brom were never going to score, but didn't deserve to win actually, Arsenal, that game. But yeah, the best of it was probably the last game.
Mark, one thing I wanted to say about that game. There's been a lot of talk about video ref again, isn't there? It's come back, it's reared its ugly head again. I thought the tempo of last night's match and the flow of it was absolutely magical. I don't want these games stopped for 2 minutes while people work out whether, for instance, Maitland-Niles tripped or was fouled. I just don't want it. Are you a fan? Are you for or against?
I'm against VAR. I've seen it work badly in sort of the Bundesliga already. You know, this season, where the fans are calling for an end to it because of the amount of injury time that they're having to play. And the fact is, they are getting, say, a couple of the obvious decisions, you know, overturned or, you know, confirmed or whatever. But there's just too many 50-50 ones that, you know, one referee thinks it is a penalty, one referee thinks it's not. And then in Italy, you had the situation recently where Lazio were threatening to pull out of Serie A because of VAR decisions against them. So I think it will only increase conspiracy theories, you know, because Arsene Wenger's not going. He thinks that wasn't a penalty against Eden Hazard. I thought it was a penalty, and he's not going to, you know, his decision's not going to change by the fact that, you know, some bloke in a box thinks it's a penalty. In fact, it'll make him even more paranoid. So
it's the biggest load of bollocks ever. We don't want it. Death to the VAR. Right then, Dan, has the relegation picture at the bottom of the Premier League become clearer? Before you answer that, we'll get a show of relegation betting from Ian.
Yeah, so we have Swansea at 2-9, West Brom 4-5. 21-10 Stoke, 13-5 Brighton, 11-4 Huddersfield, 16-5 Bournemouth, and 15-4 Newcastle.
Okay then, Dan.
Yeah, I think Swansea to start off are too short. Actually, I've watched 2 of their games over the Christmas period. Went to the game at Watford when they scored 2 late goals, but played well throughout the game. That was the first game under Carvalhal, and he's kind of come in there and there wasn't a lot of expectation that he would do much of a job there. I know it's early days, but they played very well against Watford, one of the better teams that have gone there recently. Played all right against Spurs as well. I mean, Spurs deserved to win the game, but I thought they showed a lot of good intent in the second half.
They were very timid in the first half, though, weren't they? They went. Is this what these clubs do now? Generally, they try and turn it into a sort of 20-minute game. I
suppose from their point of view, Spurs not played since Boxing Day, and they've had a hard game at Watford that they probably deserve to win in the end, and they've got to play again a couple of days later against Spurs. So it's maybe understandable. It took a bit of a while to get going, but I just think compared to what's gone before, they're not maybe as bad as everybody's making out.
So they can get out of it. Who's in trouble?
I'm not saying that. I think they're too short to go down. 2 to 9 is a very short price, and there's a lot of other poor teams down there. West Brom struggling, Stoke are really having a tough time. Huddersfield, I don't think are going to be a totally clear yet. Huddersfield and Brighton have both dropped off over the last few weeks. Southampton are the big ones. I'm not even sure I heard a price there for them. I think they're about 6 to 1 to go down, and I think it's only goal difference keeping them out of the relegation zone. Been on a terrible run. I think 9 games without a win. They're the team I would say are overpriced at the moment. I think they're 4 points above Swansea at the moment. That's not a lot really with 16 games to go. OK, Southampton are the tip. Right then, Ian, question for you. Are you embarrassed by how much the bookies have won on football over the week, over Christmas? It was incredible, wasn't it? You kept getting these results, didn't you? Yeah, we expected to do our brains on Stevens' day, but the United result against Burnley was probably the biggest result in our favour. Over the last couple of seasons, we've, as I said, done our brains, and we expect to do our brains this year again, but it was a good result all around on Stevens' day, especially for the bookies. It's never embarrassing, Bruce. Oh, well, OK. You're so callous. Right then, Mark. Mark Hughes claims there's no one else on this planet who could manage Stoke apart from Mark Hughes. I mean, what? Discuss. Well, yeah, I mean, it's embarrassing that he holds, everybody else in such contempt, really. He's trying to kid the Stoke fans. I mean, he's not the only person that could have Stoke. They were in the relegation zone for 45% of last season, and got out of it towards the end. And now that they're back in it this year, the only thing that surprises me is that anybody's surprised that Stoke are struggling. They've done nothing to improve their attack. Their defence, some of their signings. I mean, nearly 20 million for Kevin Wimmer from Tottenham. It was just bizarre. I remember you saying you drive him up there yourself. Yeah, I mean, and midfield they're just very average. Buying Fletcher from West Brom. I mean, he's okay, but he's not. How much did they pay for Mbula? That was a record transfer at the time. He's on loan in France now. I mean, I think that there's plenty of people that could do a sort of similar job to what Mark Hughes has done. And where do you have Stoke finishing? At the moment, probably around about 18th. I think they are in. I think they do need to make a change, because the way that Stoke play, they do rely quite heavily, or they have done in the past, on their crowd. And at the moment, it's too easy for teams to go there and sort of turn the crowd on to the team and the manager. So say the Coates family come to you, Mark, and they say, we read you in the Racing Post, we know you're the absolute guru, we want you to headhunt the next Stoke manager. Who are you going to go for? Well, I mean, it depends who would want the job. I mean, I don't think it's a particularly appealing job, given the sort of squad that they've got there, really. I mean, I'm sort of, you're looking sort of top end of the champ. I'd like to see someone like Wilder or something. Yeah, but I don't think would he leave Sheffield United. I mean, it's a hard one to sort of how attractive that job is at the moment. Maybe Hughes is right. There you go. I suppose. I mean, I'm trying to think of anybody in the Championship that would sort of want that job in the Premier League. I just think it's a really hard job to take, really, Bruce. Fair enough. They're good owners, though, aren't they? The Coates, and they've still got a very good chance of staying in the Premier League. I mean, if I was at Wilder, would be the sort of guy, to at least offer him it and see what. I'm sort of assuming as a Sheffield United fan, he wouldn't want it. Yeah, but I mean, I do think that as Wilder, has proven himself at League Two, League One, Championship, you are thinking sort of bottom half Premier League is his sort of next step. So I mean, if he wanted it, he would be somebody that I think deserves a crack in the Premier League. Fair enough. For sure. OK, Dan, who wins the FA Cup in 2018? I think Man United are going to have a good chance. I mean, you're looking at the big six, really. I mean, over the last 6-7 years, it's usually the big six that have it between them. The problem that they have, I mean, 5 of them, apart from Arsenal, is that you've got Champions League games that are going to often be taking place very near to when the FA Cup rounds are. I mean, I looked at Chelsea, who are up there in the betting as well. their games against Barcelona, the first and second legs, take place either just before or just after one of the FA Cup rounds. So that could make it problematic for them. United are obviously going to have similar issues, but I just feel this, of all the squads, their second string is not a lot different to their first string, and that's the sort of team I look for.
We saw that last season, didn't we? They don't have the best 11, but they've got the best 22, haven't they?
And that kind of helped them in a couple of cup competitions, didn't it, that they won as well, the Europa League and the League Cup.
He can't pick a bad side, really, can he?
No, exactly. And the other teams, even going as far as Manchester City, I think once you get quite a bit beyond the first team, and I also looked at City and I thought of all the English teams, they're the ones most likely to get the last four. And again, the Champions League semi-finals is very, very close to FA Cup semi-final time. So that could impact on them as well, right down the line as well.
Fair enough. All right, then we'll get a show from Ian on the FA Cup. Go nice and deep, Ian. Away you go.
So we're Man City Fabs 4-1, Chelsea 13-2, Man United 11-2, Tottenham 8s, Arsenal and Liverpool 9s. We're at 25-1, Leicester and Everton, and we're 33s, Southampton.
Okay.
50-1 bar.
50s bar. Righty-ho. And finally, Ian, what is your New Year's betting resolution? Which one thing, if you stopped and thought about it, should you be doing in 2018 that's going to make you a better punter? Or are you just so perfect now that there's no way you can be improved upon?
Doing okay as I am, Bruce. Just backing the value. That's all you can do.
All right. Well, give us a tip. Give us morons who do our brains on a weekly basis. Give us a good tip to make us better football punters in 2018.
The best tip is back the value, and the winners will find themselves, Bruce.
Back the value, and the winners will find themselves. That's not helping. Oh, well. All right. I'm stuck for another losing year. Right then, Mark, I want you to answer the one who's going to win the FA Cup.
Okay, yeah. Also, Jokanovic and Dean Smith. I think they're two Championship managers that could do a better job than Mark Hughes at Stoke. Okay. And they're very progressive as well, play good football. FA Cup, Leicester maybe is sort of... They're almost becoming kind of the obvious shout for sort of the dark horses for the FA Cup, but they've got nothing else to play for this season. I think they are probably the best team outside of the obvious six, if you like, in the Premier League. They've got an okay draw away at Fleetwood. You'd expect them to progress. They've got actually reasonably deep squad, particularly up front.
Got loads of forwards, haven't they?
Slimani and Nacho.
I was chatting about where Palace are going to bolster their forwards because we've still only got one. Or
Ian
half.
There's
six at Leicester, there's four at Bournemouth.
Leicester would be the ones, and I do think that they're a team that can, if they do end up playing a big side, they are capable of sort of pushing them. We've seen that in Manchester United. They took a point off. They've given Liverpool problems. They took Man City to penalties. So they've beaten Tottenham as well. Scored 3 goals at Arsenal earlier on in the campaign. Mahrez, Vardy up front can win you matches. Pretty strong at the back. Adrien Silva improves them in midfield as well. The January arrival that they signed in the summer. So, I mean, if you're looking for somebody outside of sort of the front six, they would be my choice.
Mark's going for Leicester. Dan's going for Man United. Who are you going to go for, Ian?
Yeah, I just think the way United play is kind of the way they play negatively, and they set up not to lose, and I think that kind of suits the cup competition. And obviously, I think Mourinho kind of has to win a cup to keep his job as well. So I'd probably go with United as well.
Okay, 2 votes for United, 1 for Leicester. Let's quickly deal with Thursday's Premier League game, 8 o'clock kickoff at Wembley. Spurs v West Ham. Ian, give us the prices and your idea of what the score will be.
Okay, so we are 3-10 Tottenham, 9-1 West Ham, and 9-2 to draw. So Spurs have conceded 8 at home this season already in the league, and they only conceded 9 at home in the whole of last season. So they're not defensively as great as they were. I think Swansea should have put a few past them during the week, and if they played against a more clinical side, they would have conceded. I'm saying that Ali and Kane are kind of back in form. I think Kane might start. So I think Spurs maybe 2-1. So Spurs to win and both teams to score 7-4.
That sounds half decent. Yeah, I can have that. Mark, what do you think?
I was just going to play a bit more simple than that and just go for both teams to score, actually. West Ham have scored in 12 of their last 13 meetings against Tottenham. I mean, the way that this is obviously, their big derby game, I think it encourages them to have a go, if you like. And, even when there's a clear sort of class differential, they have at least given Tottenham some problems in that attacking third. I think maybe Tottenham and both teams to score is a fair shout, because you would expect Spurs to win the game. I think the fact that there's only 48 hours between does give Tottenham an advantage because of their deeper squad. They'll probably bring in Kane, but just for there's a slight vulnerability to them defensively. Just without Alderweireld, they're organising them. I think Sanchez maybe gets a little bit too. He goes chasing after the ball a little bit too much. So there's slight encouragement for West Ham, both teams to score.
Both teams to score for Mark. And what about you, Dan?
I fancy Spurs quite strong here. I mean, I think the timing is tough for West Ham. I think they've looked at the week and they picked the strongest team for the West Brom game, got the points in the end. Andy Carroll's superb on the night. I mean, it's his first goals this season, but great header and a good finish at the end there. But can he play? I mean, he hasn't started a game in the whole of December. Can he play 2 games all of a sudden? He's injury prone in 3 days, and that's a big question mark. If he doesn't play, who else is going to get the goals for West Ham? That'd be my worry for them. Spurs, I think if they win, they'll be the only Premier League team to get all the points over the festive period in all 4 games. So they've been playing since the Burnley game. They lost at City. The intensity was back with Spurs at the Burnley game. They were very impressive in that match. They've carried it on. Southampton game. Swansea was less convincing, but left Kane out. The pitch was a complete, was a nightmare. Very heavy pitch. But with Kane coming back in, a few other changes as Mark's mentioned, I think Spurs will do this. Looking at a bet wise, I mean, the 6 of the last 7 games, Spurs have been winning at half time and winning at full time. So shade of odds on Spurs double result.
Thank you very much, chaps. Let's do the FA Cup next.
Check out Paddy's Rewards Club. Place 5 bets of £10 or more across any sport in a week and get a £10 free bet the next week. Paddy Power, you beauty! Max £10 bonus per person per week. Excludes shop bets. Selected odds. Conditions and exclusions apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
OK, so there are FA Cup games live all weekend, if that's your thing. And you start with probably the best one. It's at 7:55 on Friday. Liverpool versus Everton. Certainly the most high profile. I always find Liverpool v Everton games actually are a bit of a disappointment. They played too fast and they're all a little bit frenetic. But it'll be the game that all eyes are on as we kick off the FA Cup. And Ian Griffin, how do Paddy Power bet on this one?
So we're 2-5 Liverpool, 7-1 Everton, and 7-2 the draw.
OK. Everton were even bigger than that in the league game. Now, they somehow drew that, Mark, didn't they? It still look a bit short, Liverpool. First of all, before we go into these games game by game, there's 2 really interesting things in the FA Cup this weekend. One is interesting but disappointing. The magic of the FA Cup is wrecked by the fact there's no non-league teams. What are the chances of that? That's absolutely extraordinary, isn't it?
I mean, I think it maybe goes to show that they're not that strong at the moment. I mean, Lincoln are doing excellent work in League 2 now, but you do wonder. They were quite exceptional in the FA Cup, so maybe they've got a very good management structure there, and they got good financing, didn't they, from winning all those FA Cup ties. But Forest Green, on the other hand, the team that came up with them, are absolutely hopeless at the moment, and maybe it's just not a strong batch.
But statistically, to get only all those places available taken by League 1 and 2 clubs is
and you've gone from last year when you got
two real big stories. Yeah. I mean, it's probably
the other thing is, Mark, on timings, you had this really intense period between Christmas and just after New Year, which is obviously culminates tonight. Then we've got FA Cup, and then we've got a week off. I think that the team selections are going to be even harder to predict this year because, I mean, Roy Hodgson said, for example, he said, look, I need to give, we've got 16 games left to stay up. I've got to give these guys a rest. If you rest your players now, you can virtually have a 2-week break. So you're almost creating a midwinter break. You guys have got the job of trying to work out what's going to happen. Ian, you've got to price it up. It's very difficult this year, Dan, isn't it, to predict these FA Cup teams, don't you think?
It is, yeah, but I think it also gives you an angle. If you can get it right early, you can take a bit of a good early price. You've got to get into the minds of the managers. Look at the fixtures they've just had, what's coming up. And, as you say, you've mentioned the comments from Hodgson. I mean, there was straight after that, the Brighton price has come down for that game as well. But then again, the other side of it, Houghton, I mean, we'll get onto it later, he's notorious for resting players for big cup games.
But then you've also got we were talking about it before we came on air, really, like Bristol City have got this massive League Cup tie coming up against Man City. So you'd imagine that they're going to stick out the 11 reserves against Watford, who maybe Silva needs a victory there. So it is it is about trying to sort of pick the teams and the manager.
Rest assured, Mark and Dan are going to be beavering away, looking at all the websites, look at all the Twitter feeds, trying to work it out. So do follow Racing Post all weekend, and obviously at Racing Post Sport is our Twitter feed as well, where the boys will be putting their latest views. But Liverpool v Everton, Mark, what do you think will happen here?
I think it will be a low-scoring game. You mentioned they're often a disappointment. I mean, I just can't see Everton doing anything different to what they've been doing. I mean, they had no shots on target against Chelsea, no shots on target against Manchester United, one shot on target away against Bournemouth. They had 2 in the Merseyside derby. One of those was the penalty. I can't even remember what the other one was. I mean, it felt like they crossed the halfway line twice in that game. But I think that's what Allardyce will do until he feels like he's got the attack to be able to compete. He will just concentrate on getting it right defensively. Don't expect Coutinho to play. Dan was telling me that Mane and Salah are off at an African football do this week, so they're unlikely to play. Klopp, notorious for rotating in the FA Cup. I think it could be a bit of a grind. I mean, it's the showcase game. May not be a showcase encounter, so under 2.5 goals looks pretty fair to me.
What price is that?
It's just about odds against, I think, because obviously
it's 11 to 10.
Yeah, 11 to 10. Maybe over the time of the first goal, 27.5 minutes. Maybe over that. You know, Everton to frustrate early on, because you got maybe someone like Solanke comes in. I haven't been overly impressed with him so far when he has started. Daniel Sturridge wants to move by all accounts, so you think that maybe Everton can do a job at least for an hour or so before Liverpool's extra quality counts.
What's your view, Dan?
A little bit similar to what you were thinking. That when I saw the prices, I thought there was a little bit too short to Liverpool, and especially with the players. You know, when Liverpool without those big players, they're nowhere near the same threat. And maybe Everton will have Allardyce with the league and grinding those points out to make sure they're in a good position. That's his kind of mantra. Maybe in the Cup he will just play with a little bit more freedom in the FA Cup. It's a bit more of a free hit for Everton, really. And maybe there was an eye on it, I think, when in the Man United game, Idrissa Gueye and Sigurdsson were both left out completely against Manchester United. So they've got 2 important players for them, you know, fresh to come back in. And I just looked at to qualify prices. Everton 7-2 to qualify. I just thought it was a little bit too big, really.
That's what you're saying, Ian, isn't it? Back the value and the winners will follow. So it's 7-2 for Everton to qualify.
I don't really understand Klopp letting the lads go off to a party in Ghana just 24 hours before the match. Like, you know, it doesn't really make sense, does it?
No, I mean, when you say an African football do, what do you mean?
I think
it's only an award
of the year, it's the African
See,
football
this is why it's going to be such a minefield for punters this weekend, because you can have your bet and all of a sudden the team news comes out and you're like, who's he? You having to do what Danny Rose does, Google them.
In fairness, I mean, they may still be on the bench, I mean, you don't know. I mean,
okay.
But they're at the do Thursday nights, 24 hours before, and then flying back. So it's going to be tough, you know, for him to be involved, I would think.
O'Reilly. 12:45 on Saturday then.
Ian hasn't given his...
No, Ian, have we had Ian's tip?
No.
Oh, sorry, Ian.
No, I just fully agree with the lads. Yeah, Liverpool are going to have about 70% of the ball. But as the lads were saying, Liverpool look away at 2-5. Probably after the team news, there will be a massive drift in Liverpool. Allardyce always hard to break down, so I agree. I had tipped under 2.5 at 11 to 10 myself. So.
Okay, Ian, thank you very much indeed. Excellent. Right, 12:45 then. Fleetwood versus Leicester. Emotional game for Jamie Vardy, isn't it? Going back to where it all began. Fleetwood, how big a price are they, Ian?
They are only as big as 9-2, 4-7 Leicester, and 3-1 the draw.
We'll stick with you, Ian, so we make sure I don't forget this time. What's going to happen here?
Yeah, well, Leicester are pretty much guaranteed mid-table football, and even in the Carabao Cup, they actually played a very strong side from the start. So I don't expect them to have any worries here. So Fleetwood, pretty average League One side. So Leicester to win to nil at 6-4 looks a value here. Okay, Dan, what about you?
I'll be strong on Leicester. I mean, you look at the previous round, I think Fleetwood were taken to a replay by Hereford, who are 4 levels, I think, below Fleetwood. So I mean, that suggests that, you know, Fleetwood are not doing as well as last season. I mean, they were 4th place last season in League One. This time they're mid-table. A couple of their big players, Conor McAleny, who they signed from Everton, and Bobby Grant, have been injured for big chunks of the season. McAlany's just come back for them, but he's only been coming off the bench. Bobby Grant.
So who's going to play the McAleny role?
Well, they've had Devante Cole's been their main striker. Got about 10 goals, I think, in the league this season. So he'll be their threat. I just think Leicester are going to be too strong. They might make a few changes. Even Vardy, who's had an injury recently, maybe not even certain to play. But Slimani came in for the last league game against Huddersfield. Thought, he scored a good goal, really good accomplished finish in that game against Huddersfield. So they've got good backup. Leicester 4-7 for me.
Just Leicester straight.
Yeah, and like Mark's mentioned earlier, I think they could have a really good run in the competition this year.
Lango.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were safe for your Hackers really at 4-7. I mean, Fleetwood have only won 2 of their last 11 in League One, and actually on shot stats last season they were seen to be massively overachieving. So maybe this is sort of more kind of their level, sort of mid-table in League One. And actually, I'm not saying he will this time because it's such a big game, it's on TV, but Rossler has often rotated in cup competitions as well pretty strongly. So, I mean, maybe this is such an occasion where he feels like he's got to pick his strongest team, but I thought Leicester were pretty fair at 4-7, actually.
Okay. That Christmas jumper, Mark?
It's not, no.
It's not a favourite.
It is an old, yeah.
Very smart. 5:30, Carrow Road, Norwich versus Chelsea. What's the latest betting from Paddy Power?
So we're 4-9 Chelsea. We are 11-2 Norwich and 100-30 to draw.
Mark, kick us off.
Yeah, well, obviously Chelsea have got this League Cup semi against Arsenal, so you wonder, if this will be sort of more the old League Cup team, and then he'll go strong in sort of the League Cup. But I was Willian.
When is that semi next week?
Yeah, it's in the midweek. I was looking at Willian to score first in this game. I mean, he often comes in when there's any kind of rotation. He's got 7 goals this season as well. And if Hazard doesn't play, probably on penalties. He took one in the FA Cup semi-final last year against Tottenham. I assume he'll probably be on them. He often plays in the front three. I've seen Norwich this season. They're actually playing a bit better now. Pritchard's back. He's linking quite well with Maddison, but defensively, still not absolutely convinced by them at all. And that's in the Championship when they're coming up against, a strong Premier League side. Even if there's rotation, I think the quality of Chelsea's front three, even if it's reserve, it's Batshuayi, Pedro and Willian. I fully expect that to get the job done. And Willian, he looked a fair price really, but particularly seeing as Batshuayi doesn't seem to be fancied at all by Conte.
Doesn't like him at all, does he? Okay, and Dan.
I fancy Chelsea to win, but in a lively game. Could be goals at both ends. I just think the turnaround with having to play Arsenal this week and next week, I mean, it's sure to be an almost a reserve side. I think their backup is better up front than it is necessarily defensively. And as has been mentioned, with Pritchard coming back recently for Norwich and Maddison playing well, they have got a couple of match-winning players there. They've got guys that can produce a moment of magic in a game. I fancy Norwich to maybe score, but they're defensively no clean sheet in 8 at home in the Championship. I mean, when you even against a second-string Chelsea attack, be tough for them to keep a clean sheet. So I'm going to go for Chelsea to win and both teams to score 15-8.
Okay, they played for both clubs. Come on. Savage critic of Wilfried Zaha this week.
Oh, Chris Sutton.
Chris Sutton.
I'm
going to give you one more. Robert Fleck, back from years ago, the little striker. Yeah. Probably before your time, boys. Right, let's get the naps.
This will not be beaten.
Come on, Steve, keep up. Right, Ian, you go first.
I think Plymouth are back in form lately after a disaster start to the season, and Bury look like they're gone pretty much. So I think Plymouth at home to Bury at 13-10 looks a decent bet here for me.
Plymouth Argyle for Ian. Who for you, Mark?
I'm going to go for Mansfield on the draw, double chance away at Cardiff in the FA Cup. I mean, Neil Warnock, a notorious rotator, being in front of a small crowd, usually is in the early rounds of the FA Cup at Cardiff. They've not got a good cup record at all. They tend to rotate, maybe even as many as 11 players sometimes in their cup competitions. And Mansfield, 1 defeat in 18. And Steve Evans does like a cup run. I think he enjoys the limelight from what that can bring you. And they were anti-post favourites in League Two. Started terribly, but actually they're on the right track now, and they're probably looking at promotion. But they can go well in the FA Cup as well.
They could be shaking throats, not hands, at the end of those two. Warnock and Evans.
They'll kind of be an aberration.
I'm sure they will.
I'm
sure they will. Dan, what's your nap?
I think this is Stoke at Coventry for me. I think for Mark Hughes, it's all about self-preservation, as we've seen at the moment.
No, apparently not. He's the only one who can do the job that well.
And I think he knows he's got to pick a strong team in this game. I mean, just to last until they're playing Man United, I think, in the next league game. So, I mean, whatever you say about Stoke, there's a 3-division gap between the teams. They're 8 to 11 to win at Coventry. Also, sometimes you go to a small ground and a lower league team, the pitch can be an issue. Playing at the Rico, I mean, it's quite a decent.
Well, it's not exactly a little village. Oh, I see. That's your point.
Yeah, that's exactly. So it'll make it easier for them as well. Being on a big stadium, it won't feel unlike a sort of a Premier League match. So Stoke for me, 8 to 11.
Okay, I'm not doing mine because I haven't got a bloody clue. I'll just back yours. Right, competition time every week. We give listeners and viewers the chance to win a free £25 or €25 bet, courtesy of our sponsors, Paddy Power. All you have to do is answer the upcoming question correctly and tweet your answer using the hashtag Postcast. The winner will have the free bet credited to their Paddy Power account. The question is, who have Liverpool recently signed from Southampton for a reported £75 million? Coming up next, we'll look at Sunday and Monday's live FA Cup games.
Check out Paddy's Rewards Club. Place 5 bets of £10 or more across any sport in a week and get a £10 free bet the next week. Paddy Power, you beauty! Max £10 bonus per person per week. Excludes shop bets. Selected odds. Conditions and exclusions apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
Hi there, it's Bruce Millington, Mark Langdon, Dan Childs and Paddy Power's Ian Griffin. Looking ahead to the FA Cup live games that take place on Sunday and Monday. We'll start with the 2 o'clock game. It's Shrewsbury versus West Ham. And by the way, that is right. My wife is from Shropshire. It's Shrewsbury, not Shrewsbury. What's the latest betting from Paddy Power?
Yeah, evens West Ham, 5 to 2 to draw and 5 to 2 Shrewsbury.
Does evens West Ham do it for you, Ian?
No, it's kind of like Shrewsbury have kind of been the surprise package of League One this season. I think Moisey probably be concentrating on just staying up in the Premier League. So West Ham haven't been great away from home. So probably Shrewsbury at 13 to 5 or Shrewsbury plus a goal at 4 to 5 for me.
Okay, Mark?
I was looking at no in the both teams to score market here. I mean, Shrewsbury built their promotion campaign, or promotion bid rather, solely on defence. I mean, they've only conceded 3 goals in the last 14 home matches.
Are you surprised how well they've done this season?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're relegation favourites. I saw them at MK, actually, just before Christmas, and they weren't very good. Whaley scored an unbelievable late equaliser, but you couldn't have really see if you just sort of parachuted into that game. There's no way you would have said they were, splitting Blackburn and Wigan at the top of League One. Henderson, the goalkeeper, I'm assuming he's going to be allowed to be played by Manchester United. He's on loan from United. He's very good. He's definitely somebody that's too good for League One. Paul Hurst makes them very organised defensively. I mean, he's somebody that I thought he might get the Sheffield Wednesday job. He's somebody that I think probably deserving now of a promotion up the ladder, really, given how well he's done there. But concentrate on making them difficult to break down. Obviously, depends on what team West Ham pick against Tottenham, to who we may see on Sunday. But I think it's a hard slog for West Ham. If they get in front, I'm not sure that Shrewsbury have got enough to actually then get themselves back into the game. So that's why I was looking at no in the both teams to score, Mark.
You're going for no. Dan, what are you going for?
I think the West Ham price is big enough here. I mean, I'm fully expecting them to play virtually a reserve side, but I just think the gap between the third tier in the Premier League, it's very, very big. And you look at Shrewsbury's team, 2 of their regulars, Carlton Morris and Ben Godfrey, are on loan from Norwich. Can't get in the Norwich squad, go on loan to Shrewsbury. So it just gives you an idea of, even the gap between Shrewsbury and Norwich. You look at West Ham, I mean, they're reserves. You've got people like Andre Ayew, Javier Hernandez to come into the side. I mean, still players that can score goals.
They've got plenty of options, haven't they?
Plenty of options, especially up front. Maybe not so much in defence and midfield, but I looked at, again, when they in the EFL Cup, when they played a second-string team, they won 2-0 at Cheltenham, won 3-0 at home to Bolton with very, very much a second-string side. So it shows what they're capable of, and I just think evens at Shrewsbury is big enough.
Righty-ho, 4 o'clock. This should be a good one. Forest versus Arsenal. What's the latest betting in?
So 1 to 2 Arsenal, 5 to 1 Forest and 130 to draw.
Dan, you kick us off.
This is where, not just with my Spurs hat on, I actually think that Arsenal are a bit short here. I look at the timing of the fixture. I think it'll be like an Arsenal Europa League team. because it's between the two Chelsea games, and it might not even be quite as strong as that. I mean, Giroud's been there, and Wilshere have been their two standouts really in the Europa League. Giroud's injured at the moment. Wilshere's now in the Prem team, so he's probably not going to feature. Welbeck will probably come in up front, but I just think Forest, Brazil's gone in there as a caretaker manager. They played pretty well, got a reaction at Leeds, got a 0-0 draw there. Good start for him really there, and I just think Forest could give him a tough game. I looked at the draw and bet price, 100 to 30. I think that may be a little bit too big.
See, Chris Kamara, he did on Soccer Saturday, or the Soccer Specially, he said Forest are playing like Brazil would want them to. Was he gagged the other day?
I was sitting there while you were talking, Dan, and I just sort of went into a daydream just wishing it was Alan Brazil managing. I really do. I just love nothing more.
One other thing I should mention as well, they did Forest play in the EFL Cup earlier in the season, 1-3-2 at Newcastle, so it shows they can, against not a top Premier League team, but against the Premier League side, they've won away from home.
Mark, do you sense an upset?
Not overly, just because I'm not sure about sort of Forest capabilities really. I mean, I see all the Arsenal vulnerabilities, but I was looking at, Dan mentioned he'll probably start. Welbeck, first goal scorer. I mean, I do expect him to start, probably up front. When he did get his opportunity against West Ham in the EFL Cup in the quarter-final, he scored the only goal on that occasion. I mean, he should do better from the amount of chances he gets, I feel. But he is somebody that's played a lot of games for England. You know, he is a threat in the penalty box and probably too good for Nottingham Forest. I
mean, Arsenal have a fantastic cup record, Ian, don't they? I mean, they are the absolute FA Cup kings, aren't they? Do you think they'll get through this one okay?
Yeah, I think it's pretty comfortable. I think the 1-2 on Arsenal's probably about right. Like Forest having 1-5, they're without a real goal scorer in form, and I don't see anything past an comfortable Arsenal win. And the 13-8 Arsenal to win 0 looks a rick to me.
A rick? Oh, blimey, okay.
Rick.
Right, well, everything that's gone before is irrelevant because at 7:45 on Monday it's Brighton versus Crystal Palace, the highlight of the third round, no doubt. So, what price are my beloved Eagles in? Can they pull it off?
They're 9-5 currently, 6-4 Brighton, and 11-5 the draw.
Okay, well you can start in. What do you think?
But I think the prices look about right for this game. I wouldn't back either side at them prices. The unders looks a bit short, 8-13. So I'd probably be on. If I was backing anything here, I'd back the draw.
Okay, Mark, they fought out the most tepid, appalling 0-0 draw in the league a couple of months ago. I mean, I expected it. I could see it being 0-0, but I thought it'd be one of those fast and furious ones where they just played too quickly. But it was really powder puff. It was a weird game.
Yeah, I mean, I think because there's so many teams involved in this sort of relegation scrap that we're seeing. I think we saw a lot of draws over Christmas, and I think actually a draw in the Premier League for a lot, they feel like it's 1 point gain, don't they, rather than 2 drops. A lot of the time you're just getting closer to that high 30s mark that's going to probably be enough to stay up. Maybe they can play with more freedom in an FA Cup game, but the problem is it's going to be Brighton reserves against Palace reserves, and I was just looking really at the sort of depth of squad, and neither really looked that impressive. I just thought maybe Sacco could start in the forward role because he has done on occasions, because Palace are so short of...
he went up front against Southampton and caused absolute mayhem.
Exactly. I mean, he's got 4 goals this season, which isn't great, but it's not bad for Crystal Palace given how badly they started the campaign. And he scored in the League Cup games against Huddersfield and Bristol City. So I'm expecting a League Cup type team from Crystal Palace. If he plays in sort of the wider positions in a Zaha or Townsend role, he's probably the right price. If he plays in Benteke's position, you might be getting a bit of value. I mean, it's a few days before the game. We're not quite sure of the teams, but I thought he may give you a run.
I like that very much. I think that's a great shout. He's actually, I mean, when he's bad, he's terrible. But when he comes on and he's on his game, he can actually unsettle people.
Well, he was very much like that at Wolves. When he was on his game at Wolves, he was a devastating winger. And then obviously he had his inconsistencies, and he can, like you say, he can look useless when.
But he can also pull a goal out of absolutely nothing. I mean, there's absolute gunpowder in that boot when he connects.
And I thought Brighton looked absolutely exhausted against Bournemouth. I know it was played on a heavy pitch, but and he didn't make many changes. But they were knackered at the end of that game on Monday, weren't they? So I'm still slightly edged towards Palace if you were sort of forcing me to pick a team, but Sacco to score.
That's another factor all weekend as well, by the way, guys, isn't it? Not just horse racing. I mean, they're going to be racing on the heavy going at all these football pitches, aren't they? And they have done all Christmas, so there'll be a lot of heavy legs. Dan, what do you think will happen?
Oh, I'm keen to pick a team to win the game, just because of the fact that we talk about the teams focusing on the league. That neither side is going to want to replay here, so I don't think it will be like the league game. I think the player-wise, because it's the second strings, there might not be a lot of quality on the pitch, but I think the attitude from both teams will be to try and play positively and win the game. So I just think Palace, I would edge towards 1 defeat in 11. There's the whole morale of the club is lifting at the moment, and just looking at Brighton recently, as was mentioned there, I mean, against Bournemouth, took the lead twice, couldn't hang on to it, looked very tired towards the end. I just think I would just edge towards Palace at 9-5. I
just worry that our squad is so threadbare. I can't believe there's anyone else who's
Brighton's
got...
is thin as well.
Really?
So and Houghton, as I sort of mentioned earlier, you look at in his previous jobs, he often rests players in the early rounds of the cup.
They went out, didn't they, at Lincoln last year?
Exactly. And the timing of the fixture as well. You look at being on a Monday, they're both managers, I think, are going to be looking to the following weekend. I mean, Palace have got Burnley, I think, and Brighton are playing West Brom. Both games, both at home, they're going to be banking on really 3 points in them. I think that's all they're going to be interested in, really.
Chaps, thank you very much indeed. Well done, Mark. Well done, Dan. Thank you very much, Ian, as well. We'll be back with another Postcast next Thursday. Don't forget, if you enjoy the shows, do please review and subscribe on iTunes.
Check out Paddy's Rewards Club. Place 5 bets of £10 or more across any sport in a week and get a £10 free bet the next week. Paddy Power, you beauty! Max £10 bonus per person per week. Excludes shop bets. Selected odds. Conditions and exclusions apply. 18+. BeGambleAware.org.